When we think of the advances we've made, it is no surprise that so many of us are utterly devastated by the election of Donald Trump. I have been very clear about my opposition to this president. And everyone knows what I believe. I believe he is one of the most dishonorable, deceitful, and despicable people ever to hold public office. He has undermined the rule of law. He has isolated the United States allies. He has decimated our country's standing and leadership around the world. He has empowered and emboldened white nationalists, racist criminals, and con men just like himself. Do you think that the president's rallies that he has gone to where people are not social distancing the 6 feet that our experts tell us they should be doing or wearing masks, does that contribute to the increase?
So we have consistent advice, which is to practice the 3 W's for all individuals. Wash your hands, watch your distance, wear face coverings, avoid settings where you can't. And that applies to any setting, and people need to assess their individual circumstances.
So what you're saying is that these rallies where the president is and the people are not wearing masks and they're not socially distancing themselves to 6 feet certainly adds to the increase in the possibility of these infections. Is that correct?
Our advice is always the same. The 3 W's, whether it's in any type of activity, to engage in those protective activities, but always to evaluate your individual
circumstance. Have you ever talked to the president about that and given him any advice?
I don't.
Have you ever interacted with the president about him being a possible role model in this country and being one that could either help us to decrease the deaths and the infections by being a role model himself, wearing the mask and having social distancing? Have you ever had that conversation with him?
I'm not going to discuss my discussions with the president, but the president's guidelines since April have said wear face coverings, wash your hands, wear face coverings, practice social distancing. That's
Mr. Secretary, are you proud of the job that you have done?
I don't like to speak in those terms. 206,000 people have died.
So you don't like to speak in those terms about what you're doing? You don't like to talk about what you're saying to the president, who should be a role model to the people of this country? You can't give me any numbers about the increases that are taking place. You don't even know where those increases are taking place. And you come here today and testify with this paltry testimony that you're giving us, and you expect us to be happy. We're very unhappy about what's going on. And we feel sorry that the president and his wife and others are now experiencing, a positive test, et cetera. And I would like to thank Chairman Pallone for his support. We have been working together to try and assist the renters of this country, many of whom found themselves in extreme difficulty because of the virus, and jobs were lost, people were laid off, and people had to have some help and some protection, and the government stepped up to the plate to do that. To understand why this legislation is urgently needed, it's important to understand how we got here and what past experience with this coronavirus pandemic tells us what we should do, what we should expect going forward. Let's recall that in 2020, while Republicans held the White House and the majority of the Senate, they did not come to the table to work with us on legislation to help renters until December of last year, 9 months after the start of the pandemic. Although Congress and the current administration, under Democratic leadership, succeeded in securing a total of $46.6 billion to help struggling families remain housed, states and localities are having to build emergency rental assistance program from the ground up in the middle of this national emergency because our nation lacked a permanent housing safety net. States and localities were not helped in these efforts by the Trump administration's last-minute decision to issue rather confusing and harmful programmatic guidance, which the Biden administration had to spend valuable time on undoing. I spoke with Secretary Yellen just this week, and I know that she and her team are working closely with the governors and grantees to streamline the process for renters and landlords to access this crucial resource. In fact, the flow of assistance accelerated substantially in June with nearly 300,000 households helped. Mr. Chairman and members, let me just say to you that no matter that the governors were not able to implement this program as quickly as we would like to have them do, this is all brand new to them. And different governors are handling it in different ways. Some have been successful and have done a good job, but many have not done. And so we find ourselves at a point in time where people will be evicted. They will have their furnishings set on the sidewalk. When we're talking about children getting back in school, they won't be able to do that if they don't have a place to live. People are put in the position of not knowing where to find a house, where to find a home, what to do with the children. And so we can complain all we want to, we can blame each other for it, but the fact of the matter is we have an emergency in this country. And the emergency is, are we going to sit back and say, let the evictions take place? It's too bad that they didn't work fast enough. It's too bad that the governors didn't get it done. It's too bad that the Democrats didn't come to the table earlier. It's too bad that the President of the United States didn't basically ignore the Supreme Court, and he should have moved. We can make all of those excuses, but the fact of the matter is children and families are going to be on the street. Have you ever seen furnishings of families put on the sidewalk when the sheriffs put them out of their home? That is going to be going on all over the country, and not just in so-called poor areas. It's going to be in everybody's district one way or the other.